The people that you surround yourself with are either going to lift you up or tear you down. And so you have to be wise with who you're allowing to influence your life. And we can pretend that our connections aren't influencing us and I'm my own person and I'm independent. But the reality is we're influenced and we're influencing. And so
Yeah.
we have to take that reality seriously and not try to sweep it under the rug and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. This is the podcast for dads of all seasons to learn the things that they can do and engage so that they can go and equip the next generation for success. Here we sit down with everyday dads just like you to learn from their story, get inspired, and then start getting after it. So we invite you to join in, see what you can take away from this story, and apply to your life on your journey to becoming the Skilled Dad. Hey guys, welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. My name is Zach Reeser. I'm your host. And you know, it's really cool. I've been seeing a lot of I can't say new faces or names, but I see new numbers, which indicates to me there are more people joining in and listening to our conversations that we're having. And that some of you guys, like we've talked about, have been sharing it. So I want to say, for those who've been sharing it podcast, thank you. For those that are joining, I want to say welcome. Welcome to the Skilled Dad. Just for clarity, for anybody that's new, I am not the Skilled Dad. I am in constant pursuit of the things that I can learn to become a better and more skilled dad. And so that's why I bring great people onto this podcast, like the gentleman I have here today, who I'll introduce in just a second, to learn from. Skilled Dad is all about teaching and equipping other men with the things that they can learn and that they can go and do, because a lot of learning comes from the doing, so that they can equip the next generation for success. What does that mean? It means we want you to know the things that you can do, have confidence in being able to do them, go do them, get somebody around you, do it yourself, and then go and teach your kids, because they're going to be more confident. They're going to learn things, and then they can go and help others. That's it. That's a Skilled Dad. I'm pumped that you're here, and I hope you keep coming back, and would love to hear what you take away from these stories and tips and wisdom that we're going to learn today from my guest, Jared Haley. So first off, Jared, thank you for joining me on Skilled Dad podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped to be here. I'm excited to just get to chat and see where we go today. It's gonna be fun.
You know, we just never know where we're going to go, but we're going
That's
to have
right.
some fun.
It's always a mystery. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting.
Agreed, 100%. And you're no newbie, if you will, to the podcasting world, the content creation world. So this is like a walk in the park. You probably don't even need your coffee yet. You're like, yeah, let's just do this.
Man, it's so fun actually to be guests on a podcast because it's like you just show up and you get to have fun conversations. You know, there's a lot more prep and things go on when you're hosting. So I appreciate what you do.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
maybe after this, I can get tips from you, because on
Sure.
the podcast I've been on, I'm like, you know, this is weird because I don't know what's coming at me. And
That's
so
right.
I got to be on my toes.
That's right. Yeah.
Versus, you know, the prep, you kind of have an idea of where we're going, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a blast. And I love, you and I had a conversation prior to this, quick 15-minute combo that turned into, like, I think it was like 40 minutes, and it was
Yeah.
great. And so we have a little bit of shared history and didn't know it, being that you're from Colorado originally.
Mm-hmm.
We probably lived not far from each other at some point in time, because I was in
Yep.
Denver for a season. But man, your background is awesome, and you're somewhat of a fellow transient, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
term, because you've moved around a bit from Colorado.
Moved around a
to
lot.
lot.
I mean, for that's a relative term, but for me, it feels like a lot.
Yeah. Well, in multiple states, which are big moves. So like you were in the Midwest for a while, back to
Yeah.
Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
now you're in the Florida area, and you've got 4 kids,
We do.
and you've been married for 15 years. Is that right?
15 years. Yeah. Got married in 2009. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
can see. So
I can tell you that we never made a move because I said, that's it, we're moving. It
Mm.
was always done very prayerfully and something that we both had to come to that consensus that we were in agreement that this is what God was asking us to do. So, it's not like we're moving for moving's sake, like, hey, let's go here now. Let's check this place out. It was always been, I always say my goal is to see where God is at work and then grab onto the coattails and hang on for dear life so that we can participate in whatever it is that he's doing. And so
Yeah.
it's really that's the adventure of following Jesus, right? My wife and I have come to the conclusion that we're just weird, in the sense that, and we're okay with it. That
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that they grow up in a town or a city. That's where they live their whole lives. They never go anywhere else.
Hmm.
And we had a lot of those conversations with people when we were in Iowa, where they were like,
Mm,
why would we ever want to go anywhere else? And I'm thinking, have you ever been anywhere else? Like, do you know what else is out there?
right.
you know,
Yeah.
Not to knock Iowa. There's beautiful things in Iowa, beautiful people, incredible culture in Iowa, but it's not the only culture. And so I feel blessed that we've had that opportunity to really be around a lot of different people, been able to travel around the world. I lived in Ireland for a couple of years
Nice.
before I got married. My wife and I got to go visit missionary friends of ours in Rwanda, Africa, and so I mean we've really gotten to
You've seen a lot.
we've been able to see a lot. It's been really good.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of corn in Iowa. I'm an Illinois
Yes.
guy, so some of the guys from Iowa just shut it down. They're like, "Illinois, I'm out." Because I know sometimes I say that in jest, but so, from corn to, you know, I've not been to Rwanda, but
Yes.
totally different culture.
Yes.
Ireland, different culture,
Yes.
and, yeah, there's nothing wrong with staying where you are, like, if that's what you wanna do, but I think there is something to be said about at least getting out if you have the opportunity
Hmm.
and
Yeah. At
explore.
least explore. You don't necessarily need
Yeah.
to keep moving necessarily, but at least go see what's out there.
Yeah. No, 100%, and a little bit more about your background. So currently, you're from a position and role perspective, you are post-production manager with an
Yes.
organization in Florida, and you have a ministerial background.
Yes. This
So
is my first job where I'm not in ministry.
how's that been for you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the most odd experiences for me was looking for a church to go to. I've
Mm,
never had to look for a church before. I've always been on staff. The reason that we would move is because of a staff position. So when you move to a new place, you're working. But moving down here to Florida, I moved down early without my family as I was trying to get living situation established and things along those lines. And so started searching and hunting and praying, God, where do you want us to be? And very grateful for the place that we landed, a
yeah.
place called Grace Family Church here. They have several campuses. We're in the Clearwater campus, but great people. One of the things that you need to do as a believer is find people that you can really connect with and live life with. And we've been able to do that almost better here than I think we've been able to do anywhere else. Part of
Mm,
that is because we're not on staff, and
yeah.
so you're coming in the front door, whatever door you're coming in. It's a different people view you differently when
Yeah.
you're just regular old Joe walking in the door than when you're the pastor.
And there's roles and there's staff and there's teams and
Hmm.
you have the lead pastor, you have teaching pastors. There's still a position of positional, quote unquote, positional power, right?
Sure.
Or positional
Yeah.
authority that
I
comes
would
with
even say
that.
credibility.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's baked in.
Mm.
So that is a shift.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question right out the gate. A quick question for those in full disclosure. I think you and I talked about this too, but I know for my listeners, not everyone on here is a Christian, not everyone's a believer. And we're focused on the fact that you're dad and we're going to
Hmm.
all connect as dads. Right. And
Yep.
so this is clearly a huge part of your story. It's a big part of my story. And so we're gonna talk about that. If that's different for you, come into the conversation.
Yeah.
You're on a podcast, you're in a safe place. And so we focus on that dad element, what connects us with here's a point that could connect several of us because while there are those that live in the same town for
Hmm.
forever, and that's kind of the tradition and that's what they want to do, and that's great. There's also those that have been more mobile because of either jobs have taken them places or
Hmm.
they rolled some dice and they're like, "Hey, we're going to Austin," or whatever it is. because here in Nashville, we're booming and we got a lot of people coming in from different states.
Mhm.
And, we meet in a lot of places. Our church especially has grown with a lot of younger families, guys our age. They got 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, whatever. But it can be really challenging to step into a new place as an adult
Mhm.
and now get connected through those communities and make some of those friends. So being that this was your first round within the last 2 years to do that, what did you learn that maybe you could say, "Hey, you know what? If you're in this season right now, here's some tips to go and try out that may have worked for us."
Sure. I mean, you always have the people at work, but, sometimes you connect with people at work, sometimes you don't. There is a lot of value. We're intentional about this is getting to know our neighbors, our
Yeah.
physical neighbors, the people that we actually live next to.
Mhm.
And we're in a little townhome. It's a shoe. It's really cool. And so we have like this courtyard that we can go out and play. And when we're moving in, like we have our 4 kids,
Mm.
and everyone in that shoe is like, their hearts drop like, oh, great. Here comes this big family,
You're not
right?
coming
And
quietly.
what's that?
So you're not coming in quietly.
That's like, we're not coming in quiet. And I think we made some people nervous. But as they got to know us and as we are intentional to get to know them, we've made some really good connections with our neighbors. We have this sweet lady that lives right next to us that when we first moved in, she was the head of the HOA and she was
Mm.
mad because of where we put our pod to unload it. And, it could have been the beginning of something disastrous.
Right.
And we just took it with grace and said, "Hey, look, we know that, you're in charge of this and we want to honor that. We're going to do our best to get stuff out quickly so we can get this pot out of here." And, she's like, "Okay, thank you." And now she's inviting me over. "Hey, my grandson's coming over and I bought him this thing. Can you come build it for me?" Or
Yeah.
yesterday she brought over like cupcakes to my kids. And it's like we've developed this cool relationship with our neighbor. And
Mhm.
that's happened with everyone all around. There's one guy at the very end that was he was always kind of standoffish. And
Mhm.
last Halloween, we decided to flip on our little horseshoe, and instead of going and asking for candy, we made cookies and went and delivered it to everybody in our little area. So
Yeah.
they opened the door expecting trick or treat, and we're like, "Actually, we wanted to give you something." And at Christmas, we went and took the kids and we caroled, old
Mhm.
school caroling, to everybody, which was very confusing for people. They didn't like caroling is like a lost art in this area apparently, where they're like,
And
they're like, "Do
everywhere,
you
I
wanna come
think.
in?" They're, like, inviting, like, "You I don't have anything, you can come in," and we're like, "No, we're just singing for you. That's all, we're on our way." But that opened the door for this guy where all of a sudden, he's opening up to us and talking to us, and our other neighbors on our left, they would always sit on this bench and smoke, and,
Yep.
we're not smokers or anything like that, but we would just connect with them as we're walking by. "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" There's one day that, man, he just looked really heavy. My wife just started having a deep conversation with the guy. We were out there for like an hour, he's just unloading different things going on in his life. And for us to be able to be there for him and to pray with him was just a cool thing. And so I
Yeah.
that's an encouragement I would say is get to know your neighbors. Like they're there. I think a lot of times we're afraid to interact with everyone peeks out and then they hide back in their houses or whatever it might be.
Right.
I think there's a lot of value in building that community that you live in. For us, I mean, it was finding a place of church,
Yep.
finding that place of connection with people that are like minded and can walk with us in our highs and our lows. We all go through them. And it's good to have a community of people outside of your family that can walk with you in those things and that are trustworthy people. Not everyone out there is trustworthy, right? And so we
Right.
have to be discerning with that, especially with our kids. We want to protect our kids from those things out there that are not going to be safe for them. And
Right.
so being discerning about those things, but also being willing to step out and make those connections.
I love it. If you see me looking, like, down and to the left, I'm
Yeah.
taking notes.
I saw it. I felt it, man. I knew it was
Yeah.
happening.
I'm
Good.
nodding off or
Yes. Yeah.
anything like that. Anyone
Yeah.
that eventually watches the YouTube version of this, that's what I'm doing when I'm looking down. So I'm taking notes. 2 things on that, which I really appreciate the creativity and, I think words start out sometimes really good and then they start to become the buzzwords that they are. And then it's
Sure.
kind of like nebulous as to what does it mean. So when
Mhm.
I think of the word intentionality, right?
Mhm.
There's a great book out there, Intentional Fatherhood, like intentionality. I'm being an
Yeah.
intentional dad or whatever. I think what you just laid out c- fits at least my understanding of the definition of intentional, which means
Mhm.
it wasn't convenient. It
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily the easy route
Mhm.
and may have, maybe not for you guys, but for someone else, which I want to hit on in a minute, that seems out of the norm, right? Doing it and pressing on and being specific about what you're trying to do and
Mhm.
mustering the courage and all the stuff for action to me seems like a really good summation of
Yeah.
intentionality.
Yeah.
And
And
so it's
something that we
work.
do as a family is this isn't something that my wife and I are like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like we gather the kids together and we say, hey, we want to love our neighbors well. Do you guys have any ideas of what that might look like?
Hmm.
And so we're engaging them in the conversation. And it's great for us in building relationship with our community, but it's also relational building within our home. And so we want our kids to be a part and they're not making budgeting decisions and things along those lines, but there's other areas that we can bring them in and they can participate in the decision making process and the discerning process of how we want to do that. We want our family to be a light and to be love to those around us. And we want to bring Jesus to people and for them to see that it's not about religion. It's not even about my life is now perfect. It's about, hey, we serve a God that helps us get through the tough times and actually cares about what we're going through. And so we want to share that with those around us because we believe it ourselves so much that we want them to see it too. And we want our kids to participate in that. And they love to participate in it. It's fun for
Yeah.
them. Like they enjoy being creative with us to bring out that intentionality. And so it doesn't have to be like this load bearing thing. It doesn't have to be this scary thing. It's the adventure that you get to go on with your family. And yeah, there's definitely scary moments to it when you're walking up to the door going, oh my gosh, we're about to sing a terrible song to these people. How are they going to respond to that? But they love it. People,
Yeah.
human beings love interaction with other human beings, a real truth, no matter what your background is. We need community with people. We're designed for community. And so being able to do that as a family is it's a beautiful thing.
No, I'm with you. Well, and you're also engaging the critical thinking skills for your kids, like
Mhm.
actually how to think and form, not just like we're going to, kind of what to think. Just for context, what's the age range of your kids?
Our twins just turned 9. We
Nice.
have our middle daughter is about to turn 11 in a couple weeks, and then our oldest is 12. So,
Crazy.
when the twins were born, we had 4 kids under 3, which was insane.
That's a lot of diapers.
Tons of diapers. In fact, we worked really hard to potty train our 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And we he did it. We got him potty trained before the twins came home, but then he, like, rebelled, and there's actually a moment where in, like, his rebellious 3-year-old nature, he says, "I gotta go potty." He goes into the bathroom. He is staring at us as he's peeing on the floor,
Mm.
like,
Mhm.
"I'm intentionally missing here, and that's because
Mhm.
I'm mad at you for bringing these 2 new children into this home. I do not like them, and I do not want them here."
Oh, that's hilarious actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine like just the stare. That
Uh-huh.
sounds like there's a cartoon sketch out there somewhere where that would be perfect.
Absolutely.
If there isn't, you should make one because that's
Yes.
perfect. Uh, oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, so for context, I wanted to get kind of the age range in there
Yep.
if we're spurring some thought with anybody else. And you had said earlier that you felt like you were weird,
Sure.
and I would agree that you are weird, and I think that's a
Thank
really
you.
good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's good because here's what weird has become,
Mhm.
it seems. Now look, I know a lot of people in California listen to this. We've got the Northeast. Like we have all regions. And if for anyone
Yeah.
that hasn't traveled, I've had the chance to travel. I lived in Spain for a while. My wife lived in England, traveled around Europe primarily. But the size of the United States it's easier to go to like 4 or 5 countries in Europe than it is to go across the United States because of
Yeah.
the size.
Mhm.
And so regionally, I know there's differences. Lived in the West, born in the Midwest, live in the Southeast, lived in the Mid Atlantic. So there's differences. And if you go up to somebody, because I've lived there, like Baltimore or something,
Mhm.
the response that you might get with looking at someone saying, "Hey," just a hello,
Yeah.
could be very different than someone in, you know, small town Tennessee or Nashville.
Mm.
What I've found most of the time is because it comes off weird because it doesn't happen as much. But if you're actually making eye contact and engaging with someone and saying hi,
Mhm.
like it it can feel weird if you haven't been doing it.
Mhm.
But I've never that I can think of, yeah, maybe once, gotten like a really negative response. You might get a
Mhm.
kind of interesting look,
Mhm.
but it's almost like I think some
Yeah.
people might question like what's your intention,
Yeah, 100%.
right? But if your intention is just to connect, I've
Mhm.
also had some of the best conversations and even networked with some great people just from saying hello. So I would say encouragement to anybody listening is like go be weird and say hi to people, hold the door because the little things that maybe we've kind of stepped away from,
Mm,
they seem to ignite good things. And there's
they
a
do.
reason that they're good things.
And
So
people are watching, you know?
yeah.
Our neighbors are watching,
Yep.
whether you think that they are or not. And at least with your neighborhood, it's like a natural place to have a conversation. It's like we live next to each other. It's not
Hmm.
like I'm walking up to someone at Walmart and just saying, "Hi, tell
Hmm.
me your life story. Why are you at Walmart?" That's like extreme weird, but
Agreed.
talking to
Don't
your
do that.
neighbor, it's like we live next to each other. I just, it's natural to want to get to know people, and food is always like a great icebreaker.
Yes.
You don't even have to make it, buy something from pre-made, get some donuts or something and just say, "Hey, just wanted to connect with you and say, hey." And so we thought we'd bring you over some donuts. And then, they're like, "Oh, I'm diabetic. I can't eat donuts." You're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." It opens up, but then, what do you like to eat? And it
Right.
opens up conversations, even if it's wrong. And people, you're right. They question, they're always questioning intentions. They're like, "What's
Hmm.
the angle? What are you trying to
Hmm.
sell me?" We're certainly a society that's on guard. What's the scam? Everyone feels like they're going to get scammed by somebody. And
Yeah.
so it takes a little bit of time and investment, but over time they go, "Okay, these guys are genuine and they're just trying to be nice human beings." And eventually that opens the door,
Yeah.
and so that I guess that would be my encouragement to people is to be willing to take that step to have that conversation, and then don't give up if you do get shut down the first time. Just a happy smile as you're walking by or whatever it might be. We don't know what people are going through. Maybe their dog died, or they have a cousin that's sick, or they are going through a divorce. We have
Yeah.
no idea what kind of stuff they're carrying with them. Their reaction isn't necessarily you. We have to be careful to recognize that a lot of times the emotion that we're feeling is displaced.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Or why it's, even why that initial place of distrust versus
Right.
trust, where that
Mhm.
comes from. It started that way some point,
Yeah.
but that means it can start somewhere to go back the other way
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And depending on where you live, like your neighborhood could be very like you could look very different. It could be very diverse in types of people, religion, all those things.
Sure.
We have a lot of different things going on in our neighborhood, but that doesn't get in the way,
Mhm.
right? That's anything. It's when we get to know each other's story, just like this
Mhm.
podcast. We get to know
Yeah.
each other's stories, like we
Yeah.
understand where they came from.
Yep.
And that's how trust is built. We've had a big, mm, a decent shift over the last few years in our neighborhood where it is more young families
Mhm.
working to get in and we have more kids. So that obviously is an opportunity to
Mhm.
meet because I want to know, who my kids are playing with and
Mhm.
that environment. And I also want to know the parents and they should want to know me um, as well. And I know that they do. So we've found ways to connect like just in our driveway, do like a solo stove and
Mhm.
it kind of brings people out.
Yeah.
But for the dads too, and this was one of the questions I had when we talked about community. And for some of us that usually like going to church, we're going to find people like us. We have our work
Mhm.
people. I always encourage people to have a good circle that's kind of balanced, for lack of a better term, that's
Mhm.
not fully work.
Mhm.
Because I have seen, sometimes if it's fully work and then all of a sudden something changes, whether you leave, right, by your own omission or something else changes, now like your cohort is all there and it can sometimes not exactly stay the same.
Right.
So having that balanced approach, I love the proximity of the neighbors piece. But so families kind of find a community, find your people, but specifically like just other guys, kind of the band of brothers
Sure.
side of it. How's that looked for you?
Yeah, we have a good group of guys that get together every Friday morning, and we just talk about our weekly kind of check in of, hey, how are things going? How can we encourage one another? And then we're just reading scripture together. It's very low key. It's not like, all right, guys, we're gonna really, you know, get deep. That's not the purpose of it. It's really building community. And so that's something that's been really good for me. When I was pastoring, any church that I was at, I made sure, like when I was in Iowa, I found other pastors and just started gathering them together and just saying, hey, let's get together as pastors. Like we're all in this thing together. Let's have, and pastors, you can't go to anyone in the church and just unload,
Right.
and so being able to have other people that you can share your struggles with or share, man, this guy on Sunday, you're never going to guess what he did. Whatever it is. Not that it's like a gossiping thing, but it's a support system of, hey, have you ever had this happen to you? How did you deal with it? How did you handle it? Could you pray with me about this so that I can handle this situation correctly? Those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And so for me, that's always been important. I was blessed to be a part of a master's program that had a really good cohort of guys, but we really bonded together and continue to stay connected. And, ups and downs, seasons of connection and not connection, but always finding, and it doesn't have to be a lot of people. It could be a couple of guys. It can be a tight knit group, but definitely from the men's side of things, finding other men that can relate to you and can be those people that can help you have an outsider's perspective of whatever situation you're going through. There's a
Yeah.
lot of value there.
Yeah. I'm a huge proponent of it. People are going to keep hearing it. I promise you, you will keep hearing it because I think
Hmm.
is one of the key ingredients that is, and I always ask this question to everybody, and sometimes it can be a little uneasy, right? Because
Hmm.
statistically, there's more people that don't have that group than there are that do. So anyone hearing that that's like, well, I may not fall into that category where I've got that group. You're
Hmm.
not alone. Here's the cool thing. Because you're not alone and other people want it, then we can find ways to get that connection
Yeah.
so that you can have it.
Hmm.
And I love that you said it's not like this big group because I've run into hearing that a lot too. It's like, well, like having a couple of really good friends is not enough. It's like you need a football team or something. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, probably the layers of depth of friendships and colleagues you'll have, especially over time as you learn some of the new ways and step out and be weird and say hi to people and all that.
Hmm.
But just having a couple of the people, my buddy Brian said it, that'll get in the mud with you, where you can have a little bit of that purge valve. But I think not just the purge valve, but the feedback loop. Like they go
Right.
together
Yeah.
in a real feedback loop. So if
Right.
someone's hearing something, they're like,
Yeah.
I love you, but you're talking crazy right now. Let's talk
Hmm.
through it kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Someone
I
who
think
can bring
that's
that balance. I mean,
valuable.
it can't just
Yeah,
be your yes man guy that you love that you grew up
100%.
with. I mean, it's someone you have to be smart and have some wisdom about those people that you're putting around you
Yep.
because the people that you surround yourself with are either going to lift you up or tear you down. And so you have to be wise with who you're allowing to influence your life. And we can pretend that our connections aren't influencing us and, "Oh, I'm my own person and I'm independent," but the reality is we're influenced and we're influencing, and so,
Yeah.
we have to take that reality seriously and not try to sweep it under the rug and pretend like it doesn't exist, so and isolation drives people crazy too. Guys don't like to say that they need other people. We like to be independent. We like to say, "I can handle it on my own," but that's certainly not the way that we were actually designed to operate. We're designed to operate with other people I just
Yeah.
encourage people to find those people. For me, it's praying and saying, God, bring those right people into my life, whether that's a friendship or a mentor. But I'm also praying, God, who do you want me to be investing in? It's not just about me receiving, but who can I be encouraging and always wanting to be that for other people.
Yeah. Someone said to me once, "Got to be a friend to have a friend,"
Sure.
right? And so having, I love that you said it's not just like what I can get out of it, right? Because we can focus here,
Hmm.
but that give, that take, the investment is going almost like back to the cookies part of Halloween, making the cookies, going like there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. The investment in that, it usually doesn't just happen overnight. It's like
Right.
gotta be intentional about texting, setting the time up like you're doing Friday
Yeah.
mornings. I've recently
Yeah.
started just a once a month kind of gathering, and there's no agenda. Like the
Hmm.
agenda is to not have an agenda.
Right.
I do enjoy social cigar. So for those that like it, we'll just
Hmm.
kind of sit, have a cigar, and just chat.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's coming up. And that's what's fun. But man, everyone always leaves like fired up. And
Hmm.
so an encouragement to anybody listening.
A good fire pit too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anything
Anytime I
outside.
can get around a fire pit, I'm happy. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
cool. We actually have friends that invited us over to their house to do a fire pit, and they have a Muslim family that just moved in, and so you have a Christian family and a Muslim family, next door neighbors,
Mm.
and they're becoming good friends. It was really cool just to sit, and no one was trying to like push anything on anybody else. And he has a painting business. All of our kids were playing, and we just hung out as human beings, and it was really for me it was a cool experience. That's they get to do this all the time. And so yeah, that again, it's being intentional.
Yeah. It's
It I think the theme of today will be intentionally weird.
yeah.
Be bold, be intentionally weird.
I'm so thank you so much for
You're welcome,
intentional
yeah, I'm
weird.
I'm
It's
just here to
sometimes it's
help, man.
hard. I judge myself so hard on the title. I'm like, that's a horrible title. If you're new to this, you'll hear me say it over and over. Is step into the awkward. Like
Mhm.
sometimes if it feels awkward, just like step into it. Because once you cross that threshold, it's really
Yeah.
only awkward temporarily. It's
Mhm.
more awkward, distressing thinking about doing it than it is actually doing
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, step into the awkward. I love that.
and you don't have to be friends with everybody. We've made connections with people in our we know them and they know us, but it's not like we have deep connections with everybody now. I think that that's an unrealistic expectation as well, to think like, man, every person I come across, you might have a conversation with somebody and it just feels weird and awful and you never talk to that person ever again. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You were bold enough to give it a shot, but don't let that deter you from doing it again. Know that eventually you're going to connect with someone and it's going to be really good and life giving. It's going to be something that you're going to say, man, I'm so thankful that I have this relationship in my life. And if I never went out of my way to make that happen, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. I'm trying to conjure from the air some of those stories where you can control you. We can't control someone else's
Sure.
response. But like for maybe that neighbor, if we're just keeping the neighbor context, that always seems to be like, just not having the best day like ever.
Sure.
But you keep saying, "Good morning."
Yeah.
"Yeah." "Hey, good
Yeah.
morning."
Yeah.
Right? But that over time
Yeah.
can actually change.
Yeah.
That story
I,
can change.
my wife would tell you that I pride myself on breaking people in a good way.
Yeah.
Pastoring in Iowa, we started I mean, these are all like farmers, right? These are like men's men, and they're
Mhm.
very thick skinned. And by the time we left, man, guys were hugging, they were crying, doing all of the things. To me, it's like there's even a couple of guys at church here in Clearwater where they had such a wall up.
Mhm.
And I, it was a goal of mine to break down that wall. Not for the sake of, hey, I win and I broke down your wall, but typically there's a reason the wall is up and I want to help you overcome whatever it is that you're overcoming. And so it's been a couple of years, and there's one guy that, man, over and over and over again, I felt like I was hitting a wall. We
Mhm.
finally, like a month ago, had a really good conversation. And he was talking about like he's going through a divorce and he's trying to figure out what to do with this, how to, he has responsibility of the kids to finally get to a place where he felt safe to talk to me and knew that I wasn't a threat. There's another guy that is on the production team, is always kind of grumpy. He always seems like a grump. And I'm like, man, I want to help make his life better. I want to,
Mm.
and I want, when I come in, I want him to be like, Jared's here, and it like lifts him up, because the presence of God is with me and encouraging through me.
Mhm.
For me, it's a fun challenge to run into those people that I'm in constant contact with and say, God,
Mhm.
use me to help break that down a little bit so
Yeah.
that they can find healing in whatever it is that they're going through.
No, that's great. Yeah, you're leaving a wake either
Yeah,
way. You're
sure.
leaving a wake wherever you go, and so the choice is that a wake of destruction? Is it a
Yeah,
wake of kind of status quo, but nothing will grow out of it? Or is it a wake of, uh, you know, positivity?
yeah.
I don't know that that's the right word, but hopefully
Hmm.
you can get the idea. It's like a good wake, bad wake, or no wake at all, in a neutral zone, but you are leaving a wake wherever you go. So we totally didn't talk about like what we are going to talk about on this episode. We might have to do a second episode, but
Which
this I
brings
think
me
this will be
to my
great.
next point. I'm just kidding.
But no, I think that just with that experience and man, you got to see the opportunity of what it was to go into a group setting where you're not in a leadership role
Yeah,
and then see that, feel that, touch that, right?
yeah.
And so I think it's valuable for those that are listening that if you're in a place, speaking to dads, um, and I know there's moms that listen to this too. Hello. Um, when you do find that group that can challenge you, you can challenge, and we're all wearing armor, a form
Mhm,
of armor every day. Now, how thick your armor is could depend on a variety of things. Find some people, hopefully your wife, if you're married, your wife is a person you can take your armor off with. Hopefully you can find at least two or three guys through
mhm,
work, intentionality, being weirdly intentional, that you can take your armor off with. And what that means though is that when you take the armor off, you're not having the same protection as you would. That's metaphorically speaking. But when you do, they take their armor off as well. It's like now you can actually have a different form of connection and growth that's very difficult to have riding solo all the time. And the armor's heavy, right? So your kids will also see that. And you're teaching them by showing them what it means to have strong, good, healthy relationships. So the power's in your hands, as they say.
mhm.
And if you want to learn, for those listening, like if this is an area where you're like, yeah, still struggle with it or want to learn more or something like that, email me. You can go to zach@skilleddad.com and love to have a conversation about it.
Mhm.
Um, all right, Jared, with the remaining few minutes we have here, thank you for all of that. It was a great
Yeah.
breakdown, especially in your community. Like I'm thinking about some of my neighbors and take cookies too now. I'm going to steal that idea, but you got four kids. You had four kids under three for a period of time.
Mhm.
You had a rebellious whizzer for a minute.
That's right.
What are 2 to 3 anecdotes, encouragements, advice pieces that you would leave with someone listening that's a dad right now?
Sure. The first would be monkey see, monkey do.
Mm.
So whether we like it or not, our kids are watching and they do what we do. And so recognizing that, and now that our oldest is 12, I'm seeing some of my bad habits come out in him that I'm like, oh no. You know what I mean? And so I would say we're never going to be perfect, and don't expect your kids to be perfect either. But know that the life that you are intentionally living, they're going to begin to mimic that. Even in their rebellion, I think that they're going to mimic that. And it's something that for our home, we want. our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with God and the things that we do to be a normal experience. It's not something that we do when we go to church. It's not a face or facade that we put on when we leave, but we want it to be something that is always happening at home. The best example I use often is when we go out to eat and we're all sitting at a restaurant. I kid you not that every single time we eat somewhere, someone will come up to us and say, "Man, your kids are so well behaved. How do you get them to sit there and eat a meal?" And I think, number one, I think that's scary
Uh-huh.
that we're such an anomaly that you feel the need to come over and tell us that our kids are sitting and being good.
Without
Number
screens.
what's that?
Without screens.
Without screams. Yeah, that they sit there and they do what they need to do. But the reason that they're good at that is because we eat meals at home around the table.
Mm,
So it's not weird for them. It's normal. It's normal to sit around the table. And so I always say, make Jesus normal, you know? M- The behaviors and the things that the adults that you want your kids to grow up to be, if you want them to be, self-secured, well-developed, driven adults, you have to cultivate that in your everyday life at home. And that's what they're gonna carry with them. So, monkey see, monkey do. Make
so
the
good.
life that you want for them normal inside your home,
Mm,
and then be intentionally weird, and be okay with that.
yeah, I love that.
Because that's weird anyway. Like, our home life, I think, is not typical of our culture either. Be bold to be countercultural for the
Yeah.
sake of your children.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's like I could be wrong on this. I might get skewered for this, and that's okay. A lot of what we're talking about now is reminiscent of where it was, just from a societal standpoint of saying hello to people, knowing your neighbors,
Mhm,
eating dinner around the table. At some point, that kind of diverged and shifted a little bit, and so now that's
mhm,
the weird part.
mhm,
And so we're um, being intentionally weird with something that historically, in many ways, provided a little bit more of a stable home. So it's not
mhm.
reinventing the wheel, but it
Right.
is, with technology and stuff, which is what we're going to talk about. By the way,
Yeah.
a lot of people are wondering, like, what are you going to talk about?
We'll have to do another one sometime.
We'll
We
do
can talk
another
about
one.
technology.
Yeah, we both have opinions on technology and use and how to deploy that within the home as a tool, and at the same time use technology as a tool to connect with people. So
Mhm.
little potential dichotomy there. Stay tuned for the future.
That's right.
All that to be said, I've never thought about that. I'm so glad you said that, and it's so basic. But like we get the same comments about the kids sitting around the table, and I've got
Mhm,
9, 6, and 3. And they're like, well, how do how does that happen?
mhm.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
we don't allow screens at the table. We want them engaged in conversation,
Mhm,
and we eat around the table every night. And
mm,
it didn't click initially that that's what they're used to.
mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. It's not
that's
weird for them. It's normal.
um yeah. So once we keep going with weirdly intentional,
Mhm.
weird
If
intention.
you can start that, it's better as well. Not that
Yeah,
when they're 12 or become teenagers, not that it's impossible, but if you start that practice when they're 2, 3 years old,
yeah,
2 and 3-year-olds actually can sit at a table and eat. It is possible. When
100%.
when you're the
Yeah,
boss of the home, yeah, like, it might take some work at first because they wanna get up, they wanna do other things, but you gotta be consistent with it, and you develop that they begin to pick up, "Okay, this is what I do."
mm,
And then when they're 4, 5, 6, you're coasting.
yeah. And by the time they get into middle school, a lot of the foundational stuff has been set in many
Right.
ways, right?
Mhm.
So what that foundation is up until the age of 9, 10, like this is
Yeah.
the work zone, and then it's the build and support.
Mhm.
But yeah, all 3 of my kids at 2 and 3 were doing fine, so it
Yeah.
can be done. Jen.
I don't like the excuses of, "Oh, well, it's the terrible twos," or, "Well, my kid's just a wild child," or, "That's just the way he is." It's like, no. You're the parent, you have to set the boundary. And whatever boundary you set, they're gonna push it.
Hmm.
So, especially when they're younger, you got to be a little bit more extreme with the boundary, recognizing that they're going to push it further than you set it,
Hmm.
but then you know where you actually want them to be. And so you're setting the boundary so they don't pass that boundary.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, it's a game changer when your kids, they want boundaries. They're looking for it.
Yep.
Because they don't understand. They don't know what they have no clue what boundaries are until you set them, and they're just trying to find, what am I allowed to do and what am I not allowed to do? What's acceptable and what's not acceptable? It's not a rebellious thing at that point, it's a learning thing.
Yeah.
And so as the parent, you teach them by giving them healthy boundaries.
Yep. But I'm just taking notes for the future. The the 2 and 3 shift thing, the expectations are the same.
Mhm,
Now, how we need to respond to and teach him is different
mhm,
than I had to do with my other
sure,
2.
mhm,
But if he knows the expectations, I also have to be clear on staying and protecting and reinforcing the boundary
correct.
that's been set.
Yeah,
Because once you give it, well, that's not the boundary anymore.
yeah, that's right. Lazy or apathetic, or just say, "Oh, that's the way they are." Man, it it it's gonna be a rough teenage years, I would say. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have that. I don't have that credibility yet because our kids aren't teenagers yet, but I have full confidence in, because of the healthy relationship and boundaries we've set with our kids, that not that they're not gonna make bad decisions and things along those lines, but I just have trust that God is gonna carry us through that season and that we're gonna maintain strong, healthy relationships with our kids.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be weirdly intentional about it.
I'm
And
gonna be
so
weirdly intentional about it.
that right there on its own is going to
Yeah.
increase the chances that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Love it. That could be a fun topic to hit on, but no, I appreciate that. Monkey see, monkey do, for
I
you
can't
and your
claim that,
household.
by the way. We went to a conference in Exponential in Orlando, and I can't remember the guy's name that said it, but he was breaking down discipleship, and he's like, "It's really easy. Monkey see, monkey do." And so we've adopted that into our culture and rhythm at our house. There's nothing new under the sun.
That
Yeah.
is it. Well, Jared, I appreciate being on here with me. It was fun and
Yeah.
it zoomed by really fast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Would love to sit down with you again on some of these other topics if it's in your cards and your schedule. But no, I really appreciate that. And just the opportunity to connect with you, learn from you as we all become skilled dads.
Yeah.
So I need to ask you, where can people find you? Oh,
Yeah.
man. Ooh,
So Strong by Design, go to strongbydesignpodcast.com, or you can look us up on YouTube or any platform. It's not just me. We have 3 other hosts besides me. God designed you to be strong, and that's mind, body, spirit. So I cover all of the faith and spirituality topics. We have a guy that's talking health and fitness. We have a
yep.
lady that's talking about nutrition and how to take care of your body and what you're eating. And then the owner of the company, Mike Westerdahl, actually talks about leadership and developing your mind. So all aspects of who we are as beings, you never know, depending on the week, what kind of topic you're going to get. You can find me, Jared, JaredSaria. You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram. Jared's Aria84 on TikTok, but that'll be banned, I hear soon. So maybe don't go there. Both of those places, you can find me. More than happy to have a conversation with anybody. Uh, be on the lookout. My wife and I are working on the Spirit Led Family, which is going to be curriculum and courses and things that we're hoping to help equip families how to do this, how to live this intentional life at home. So I'll be looking for that sometime in the near future. It'll be thespiritledfamily.com. Please reach out. Love to be back on your show sometime if you'd have me back. And yeah, check out Strong by Design. It's really good. It's fun to have a platform outside of the ministry space to be able to talk about who God is and why he benefits us when we follow him. So,
Love it. Yeah, I will include all the links in the show notes and on the website,
yeah.
skilledad.com. But no, I'm excited about Spirit Led Family. I remember you
Yeah.
told me about that. So you got a lot working right now,
Yeah.
my man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Sorry, this is another old plug, but
Yeah.
look up Practical Living. I did a YouTube show where I was learning a skill from somebody. So, like, the first guy was a welder. He taught me how to weld, but then we
Okay.
also got to hear his story. And so, if you look up Practical Living on YouTube, we have, I think, 5 episodes. They're about 30 minutes each. We have a welder, we have a MMA fighter, we have a race car driver, a tattoo artist. So these different guys. So it was
I
a
love
really
it.
fun thing, and the idea was learning different skills, that I think your dads would be
Yeah.
excited to learn some of those
Sounds
skills. So,
familiar. I like it.
yeah.
I want to see the MMA fighter. Did
Yeah,
you get in
yeah.
the ring?
I got in I got in the coach, the MMA coach, he
Uh-huh.
was a UFC fighter, and he taught me how to do some choke holds and how to punch and stuff like that. So, basically, he just put me in a choke hold. But I did get to go behind the scenes of this guy's fight. His name's Parnell Davis, and so I got to go into the cage and kinda as he was warming up and stuff like that, kinda be in there with him and things like that. So,
Oh,
it was
nice.
really cool. It was a really fun experience. I'll send you the link to that so that you
Yeah.
can have it, and it'd be easier for people to find it anyway.
No, that'd be perfect. Yeah. Any links you got, send them my way, man. No,
Yep.
I love it. Yeah. Everybody go check those out. I love what you're doing over there. And yeah, we'll definitely find a time to get back on here. We
Yeah,
opened up
sounds good.
a couple of cans, so ready to pour them out. Jared, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch and maybe get something on the books, but I look forward to seeing you in the MMA ring soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jared. Well, guys and gals, if you've got it this far into the podcast, I know you've gotten something. We kind of took a turn on the community, but man, what a good one. Jared's insight on being intentionally weird. Go be intentionally weird. It's a good thing as long as we're doing it to connect with people. We're doing it to reinforce others, to encourage others, and also just to build the community around us because you never know what opportunities may come from that in places that both you can serve and that you can get. It's relationship, it's a give and take. Go check out some of these things that Jared's telling me about with the practical living side of it. Sounds fun. I think
Mhm.
you guys would like it. Strong by Design. They've got a lot of great things working over there and some more resources. So at the end of the day, it's about finding the things that you can take and learn from that then you can go and do so that then you can equip others and equip your family for success. So glad you're here today. We're going to have some more episodes coming up every week. Go check out skilledad.com and you can follow us on the socials at SkilledDad. Until then, I hope you can take away some of these things and apply them to your life on your journey to becoming the skilled dad.